triangulating that and saying, well, we don't like the project, so any risk.
Oh, hi. How are you?
They run their own model. And this is not a friendly environment where they take risks on this. Yeah.
Been there for 25 years. Oh, yeah. I think I pretty much attended all the meetings, even way back when it was out. You know, it's really kind of, I'm very surprised too. They usually come by and check with me, and so that kind of gives them an out. They find out, my name's Larry. So me and Tom. Oh, okay, yeah, and they come by, they ask me, and then they kind of think, well, there's other people. No, I know, but that's kind of like an excuse. State. Oh, yeah, it's so ridiculous. I mean, you could write a script for the whole thing. It's pretty, I mean, sometimes it can get to be a little bit, but generally speaking, I just kind of ignore it, just kind of laugh. And I've done a lot of that. No, not necessarily. We're gonna kind of, I think that property is unique and now we got the street. Yeah, I know. Well, maybe they thought that last time.
Now they have to.
And so it's, I think if I don't think they can do that. Actually create those. And once they have all three, I think it changes.
No, I literally said.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'd like to call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. With that, I'll start with the roll call. Could we reflect that all 5 commissioners are present? And if you'd join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Okay, oral communications is an opportunity for the public to address the commission on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Members of the public will give them 3 minutes to address the commission. Are there any speaker slips?
We have no oral communications.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on. Next item is changes to the agenda. I'm going to make one change to the agenda tonight, maybe technically 3. I'm going to move the Planning Commission report and Secretary reports up to just after the consent calendar and complete those early tonight. Okay? I don't think so. With that, we'll move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar are items that are considered routine in nature and are voted on as one block of items. Tonight, there's only one item on the consent calendar, approval of the minutes from the November 20th Planning Commission meeting. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. and
I'll second that.
Thank you. I'll call the vote. Okay, that passes 5-0. Okay, I think what I'll do is move, cover the future agenda items added by planning commissioners now. Is there any item that will be added by planning commission? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to planning commission reports. Any reports? No? Okay. Is there a secretary report?
No.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to item 8A of the regular agenda. Item 8A is case number policy 008448, 2025. The applicant is the City of Encinitas. And for tonight's staff report, we have Charlotte Brenner.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Charlotte Brenner, here tonight to present item 8A for zoning code amendment, specific plan amendment, and a local coastal program amendment pertaining to single-family residence parking regulations. I'd like to provide some background on the items I'll be presenting tonight. Assembly Bill 1308 restricts the city from requiring additional parking when a single-family residence undergoes a remodel, renovation, or addition and does not exceed maximum size limits imposed by the zoning regulations, including but not limited to height, lot coverage, or floor area ratio. Planning staff have been implementing this state law since it went into effect. The current zoning code and Encinitas Ranch specific plan require an increase in on-site parking if the floor area exceeds 2,500 square feet. Therefore, the code is not in compliance with this bill, which necessitates an update to our zoning regulations. On September 25th, 2024, the City Council adopted Resolution Number 2024-111, initiating the required zoning regulations and local coastal program amendments. Staff have made amendments to Section 30.54.030, Schedule of Required Off-Street Parking of Chapter 30.54. Strikeout is used to denote text being removed, and underline is being used to denote new text being added. The proposed minor revision would amend the existing requirement to exclude remodels, renovations, and additions pursuant to Government Code Section 65863.3 and as amended, as shown on the slide. The same language has been included in the Encinitas Ranch zoning ordinance subsection 6.5.3 development standards as shown on the slide. A public notice of availability opened a 6-week public review period which began on November 21st, 2025 and will conclude on January 2nd, 2026. This notice is required to elapse prior to any final action being taken by the City Council on the local coastal program amendment. Staff has not received any comments to date. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve Resolution Number 2025-35 to make a recommendation to the City Council to adopt Ordinance Number 2026-01 for amendments to Title 30 of the Encinitas Municipal Code, the Encinitas Ranch Specific Plan, and the Local Coastal Program to implement legislative changes regarding parking requirements for single-family residences pursuant to Government Code Section 65863.3. This concludes my presentation. Staff is available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of the staff? Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this?
We have no speakers for this item.
Okay. I will close the public comment portion and open up to commission deliberation.
My understanding with this was just the city matching up with the various assembly bills that had passed, and all we're doing is just kind of changing up the codes based on the staff report, so.
I think it's a procedural vote, and
Procedural
there's
vote.
really not much to debate, so I would entertain a motion.
A motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, thank you. Okay, that passes 5-0. Okay, the next item is item 8B. This is a continuation of an item that I have previously recused myself from. I will be recusing myself again tonight for the same reasons. So with that, I will be leaving and handing the gavel over to Commissioner Ryan. Good night.
We're just waiting for the senior planner to come. Just so
Give
everybody
us
knows.
1 second. Yeah, thanks.
But I get along with him really well. He's a dear kid, but he's got the terrible shoes thing going on.
Good evening, commissioners, members of the public. Oops, sorry.
No, you're good. I just waited to announce it first. You're good. All right, so now we're moving on to 8B. This is a continued public hearing to consider a design review permit, density bonus request, coastal development permit, and SB 330 request for a 120-unit multifamily apartment development on a 5.23-acre vacant site located on Sage Canyon Drive in New Encinitas. First, are there any disclosures?
I looked at online aerial maps and some street
I've
view,
been
and
by this
I as well have been by the location a few times.
Okay. Susan?
I've been by the site. I ride by it frequently on my bike.
And the same, it's almost a daily commute, so yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the same for me, just passing by on my, by living in Encinitas. So nothing new. Oh, so I'd like to now turn it over to Senior Planner Christina Bustamante for a staff presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners, members of the public. I will be sharing the Sage Canyon Agenda Report with you today. The project site is located on the south side of Sage Canyon Drive. The site is sloping downward toward the west. The property is currently accessed from Sage Canyon Drive. The project site is within the Housing Element Residential 30 Overlay Zone. The surrounding property to the north, west, and south are within the Residential 3 Zone, and properties to the east are within the Residential 2 Zone. This slide here is a comparison of the Sage Canyon project that was built in 2023 versus the current Sage Canyon project. At the time in 2023, it was 145 units, about 44% lot coverage, and was about, and then today's version is 120 units, and it's about 12% lot coverage. This is a comparison of the two sites here. Again, the 2023 being on the left with the current version being on the right, demonstrating a little bit of the differences between the two different site plans. This is the project that was approved in 2023, just to provide some background in comparison to what we're looking at today. Chapter 30.09 of the Encinitas Municipal Code identifies permitted uses for the R30 overlay zone. Multifamily dwelling units are permitted by right within the R30 overlay zone when developed at a minimum density of 25 units per net acre. The project complies with this requirement by providing 34 dwelling units per acre. The planning permits for this project include a design review permit, a density bonus request, and a coastal development permit. An exemption from CEQA request for 120 multifamily apartment development on a 5.23 acre vacant site. The project renderings before you are providing perspectives from the north, south, east, and west. The project is subject to the Encinitas Municipal Code for Development Standards, Hillside Inland Bluff Overlay, and City Objective Design Standards and Guidelines. The project is also subject to state density bonus law and government code. The applicant is proposing to provide 24 low-income units, 20% of the total to be eligible for by right approval. 22 low-income units are required by the city's inclusionary ordinance, would be deed restricted in perpetuity, and the other 2 units would be deed restricted for 55 years. The project has been conditioned to require these affordable units reserved for low-income households. Housing development consisting of 5 or more dwelling units may propose a density bonus in accordance with state density bonus law. Projects that qualify for the California state density bonus law are also permitted waivers and concessions. A concession pursuant to state density bonus law is defined as a reduction in site development standards or modification of zoning code or architectural design requirements, such as a reduction in setback or minimum square footage requirements. Approval of mixed-use zoning or other regulatory incentives or concessions which actually result in identifying an actual development cost reductions. Under state density bonus law, a waiver is an exception to or modification of local development standard, such as a setback requirement, height limit, or parking ratio that would otherwise physically prevent a housing project from being constructed at the density allowed by the state density bonus law. The applicant is allowed up to 2 incentives or concessions and an unlimited number of waivers. The project is requesting 6 waivers and 1 concession. The applicant is requesting a waiver for design review standard 5.9.2 which states that when a retaining wall exceeds 6 feet in height, a maximum of 3 freestanding or retaining walls within 20 horizontal feet are permitted if a 4-foot minimum landscape setback is provided between each proposed wall with a maximum height of 6 feet for each wall. The waiver would allow retaining walls up to approximately 34 feet in height, which has been circled here on the diagram you see before you. Retaining walls have been split between the east side and west side. Importantly, the taller retaining walls will be screened by the proposed buildings. The applicant is requesting a waiver from Encinitas Municipal Code 30.34.030B2, which limits encroachments into natural steep slopes by 10%, limiting development in steep slope areas. Over 30% of the project site is covered by slopes greater than 25%. The code limits the project to encroaching into steep slopes by 10%. The waiver would allow the project to encroach approximately 28% into the steep slope area. The applicant is requesting a waiver from Encinitas Municipal Code 30.16010B6A, which states that building height is limited to 35 feet in the R30 overlay zone. The waiver would allow a building height on the west elevation of 75 feet 2 inches to the tallest point of the access stairs and 73 feet 2 inches to the tallest point of the residential building. The applicant is requesting a waiver for Encinitas Municipal Code 3016-010E11 for private storage space. A minimum of 200 cubic feet of lockable enclosed storage area per unit shall be provided within a garage or carport area or within the main building. The waiver would allow the project to provide 70 storage units with approximately 225 cubic feet of space, which is more than the required 200 cubic feet, but less than 1 storage space for each unit. Per Encinitas Municipal Code 3016-010E12A, private open space, a minimum of 100 square feet per unit shall be provided as private open space for both ground floor units and units contained wholly on the second and third floors. For units wholly on the second and third floors, this open space may be provided by outdoor decks. The waiver would allow 7,039 square feet of private open space, which is approximately 60 square feet of private open space per unit. The applicant is requesting a waiver from Encinitas Municipal Code 3016-010E12B, which requires 200 square feet of common open space per unit. The waiver would allow approximately 5,200 square feet of outdoor common open space and approximately 4,100 square feet of indoor common amenity space. A concession or incentive pursuant to state density bonus law is defined as a reduction in site development standards or modification of zoning code or architectural design requirements, such as a reduction in setback or minimum square footage requirements, approval of mixed-use zoning, or other regulatory incentives or concessions which actually result in identifiable and actual development cost reductions. The city is required to grant the concession or incentive proposed by the developer unless it finds that the proposed concession or incentive does not result in identifiable and actual cost reductions, would cause a specific adverse impact on public health or safety or on property listed on the California Historic Register, or would be contrary to state or federal law. Typically, new developments require right-of-way improvements pursuant to Encinitas Municipal Code, Chapter 2336. The project has requested a concession to allow for the project to be granted discretionary permits without public improvements along the project frontage on El Camino Real. The city received a letter dated October 9th, 2024, demonstrating that the applicant acknowledged the city's concerns with approving the concession request that would allow omitting the public improvements along El Camino Real. As described in detail in the December 2025 memorandum from the city engineer, omitting installation of the required public improvements would cause a significant adverse public health and safety impact that cannot be mitigated, The California Coastal Commission submitted a letter for the project on December 15th, 2025. The letter stated the commission supported public infrastructure improvements that improve public safety and water quality, as well as increase mobility, and that they appreciate the coordination they have had with the city to identify a project consistent with the resource protection policies of the city's certified local coastal program. The city will continue to work with the Coastal Commission and developer to assist the developer in complying with the conditions of approval. The concession would result in adverse public health and safety impacts to pedestrian safety and accessibility, bicycle safety, traffic safety, and evacuation time in the event of an emergency. The absence of sidewalk along the proposed project frontage at Prime Arterial, where 120 residential units would be constructed along the highest speed roadway in the city of Encinitas, prevailing speeds of 56 miles per hour, would have a significant, quantifiable, direct, and unavoidable impact on public health and safety, and that it would increase the risk of collisions involving pedestrians and vehicles. The resulting unsafe conditions impact any pedestrian from the project who desires to reach an off-site location. The current bicycle lane is not buffered from vehicular traffic, increasing the risk of collisions with vehicles and making it difficult for drivers to maintain the 3-foot separation required by state law. The lack of uniformity in the roadway cross-section along its entirety increases the risk of collisions because the sudden change in the alignment of the roadway can affect driver expectations and behavior by disrupting visual cues for drivers. Finally, a quick note for clarification and cleanup. There was a typo in the staff report regarding the conclusion of the CRA report, stating that the report concluded that the project would significantly impact evacuation of the proposed or existing surrounding communities. The applicant study concluded that the project would not negatively affect evacuation times. However, based on the fire chief's evaluation of evacuations during a large-scale incident, it would have a significant impact. As seen throughout the state and most recently with the Palisades fire, having appropriate and adequate evacuation routes can be the difference between life and death. Portions of the city of Encinitas are highly prone to wildfires, especially the community of Olivenhain. The fire department has identified the Olivenhain fire evacuation route, outlining the emergency evacuation route for all residents of Olivenhain during a wildfire, including El Camino Real, because it is one of the direct routes out of the Olivenhain community and can serve as an alternative to the I-5 if it is jammed. Furthermore, the third lane was identified as necessary lane to allow the fire vehicular access should there be a need for contraflow. The city's adopted public road standards identify the requirements for street, sidewalk, and bicycle improvements. El Camino Real is designed as a prime arterial roadway per the city's circulation element and requires 3 vehicular lanes on the east side with a 10-foot wide parking lane and 10-foot wide parkway that includes 5-foot sidewalk as shown in this section. The public road standards require additional right-of-way for bikeway. The city's bikeway plan requires a Class 2 bikeway in this portion of El Camino Real. The graphic in front of you is showing the project site in the middle with the north condition on the top and south of the project site here. The image is intended to show the disconnect between the sidewalk as well as the bikeway. The public comments received during the public notice period were generally in opposition to the project, citing concerns for increased traffic congestion, density of the project, and lack of public improvements along the frontage of El Camino Real that are consistent with development to the north and south of the subject parcel. The city has also received comments of support for the project. Staff are generally in support of the housing development project, including the requested density bonus and requested waivers. However, the requested concession to provide no frontage improvements would result in significant adverse public health and safety impacts to pedestrian safety and accessibility, bicycle safety, traffic safety, and evacuation time in the event of an emergency that cannot be mitigated. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution approving the project case, denying the concession, and conditioning the project to design and construct standard public improvements on El Camino Real based upon the findings and conditions contained in the attached draft resolution of approval. This concludes my presentation. There are several staff members available for questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for staff? Someone want to start us off?
Sure, I'll start. Thank you for the report. So we have a support for the doing the street improvements based on the municipal code, which you've outlined, as well as the denial of the concession based on the public health and safety standards. And the support for the public health and safety standards were provided to us in a memorandum. I believe was it the engineer that provided that to us? I was hoping, I thought it perhaps might be helpful if you could just review some of the sources that you cited, because I thought they were substantial when I went through the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitaker, for the question. I'm going to defer to Dan.
Dan Nutter, Director of Engineering and City Engineer for the City of Encinitas. Thank you, Commissioner. That's actually quite lofty, so I can absolutely step my way through the memorandum, and I'll cite some of the sources. I mean, I think we've got over 40 citations or so. So there are quite a few citations.
Certainly, I wasn't looking for
Yeah.
looking for every single one of the sources, but you did cite some substantial sources, and I just would like that to be sort of part of the spoken record, as well as just acknowledgement that that was what sort of drove the underlying conclusions.
Sure, absolutely. So just high level, various sources are circulation element, the standards that we have from a roadway design perspective here at the City of Encinitas that has been adopted. Those would be the public road standards that we have here. Let's see. Some major elements from a health and safety perspective. We have the Federal Highway Administration and a number of their guiding principles and documents. We have the American Association of Highway Engineers, AASHTO. They have guidance on some of our geometric designs, so we also have adopted that, and we have been pretty clear in this document that some of those guiding principles are needed to be addressed as part of the frontage improvements. This particular segment is registered on the National Highway System by the Federal Highway Administration. Just to put that in perspective, if you look in a north-south corridor along the County of San Diego, the cross-section of San Diego County where Encinitas is, there are only 3 roadways that are on the National Highway System. That's Interstate 5, Interstate 15, and El Camino Real. So, pretty substantial in that standpoint. And let's see, I think those are some of the major design standard elements that we've looked at. We have speed surveys that have been conducted as part of our methodology of establishing safety parameters and speed needs. So that's part of knowing what our 85th percentile speed is in this area, and that's kind of been a guiding factor as well. But I think a myriad of things, and trying not to belabor that point, but there are a lot.
Certainly, yes. You also used some California Vehicle Code, as well as looking at the Sage Canyon local mobility analysis that was conducted, utilizing the information there.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are probably 20 different research articles that have been cited as well. So, again, those are not things, unfortunately, I just don't have off the top of my head.
Understood.
But there are a lot of different sources that have been cited as a foundation of how this is a health and safety necessity.
Wonderful, thank you. In going in and looking at what is being asked of the commission to support, we have the request to approve the project and deny the concession and the condition of, put conditions on the road improvements. And I just wanted to highlight the use of we had included in our package of information was a letter addressed to the County of Contra Costa. And it was from the Housing and Community Development Department from the state, addressing an issue that they had with a development in that particular location and how that supported the request as it is tonight to us. Could you elaborate on that, perhaps?
Yes, I can elaborate a little bit more. So that particular memo was a technical assistance memo from the HCD, and that is the housing authority for us here in the state of California. And the circumstance there was a project that was requesting to be reconstructed without a sidewalk. The technical assistance memo, essentially, to paraphrase, said that the city was able to approve the project but add the sidewalk as a condition of approval.
Providing support for structuring the request tonight.
Correct. We're using similar reasoning for this request.
Okay.
Yes.
And so additionally, just recently, there was a letter that was included in our packet that came from the Coastal Commission. And I had a question specifically about that, that particular letter. So in that particular letter, they identified that there was a retaining wall that was located 47 feet to 8 feet from the riparian area. And I was a little bit confused by that particular data because the project as was proposed, it appeared that the retaining wall was 100 feet from the riparian area. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, I can elaborate on that. At the time that staff met with the Coastal Commission, the idea was conceptual only. It was not an idea that was proposed by the applicant, was not part of the set of plans that you see before you, that we are reviewing right now. And the objective of that conversation was to understand the concerns of the Coastal Commission and what options might be available that they would be at minimal to.
And to add a little clarity, the intent behind that discussion with Coastal Commission was to bring forward a potential feasible alternative to installing the frontage improvements that would have as minimal impacts to environmentally sensitive areas as possible. So with that potentially feasible alternative, that would require a retaining wall on the eastern edge of the roadway if we were to do a roadway widening with the sidewalk. And that is what the Coastal Commission was referring to in relation to a retaining wall.
So to add on a little bit more clarity to clarity, if I may.
Can you just identify yourself, just so the record's clear to people
My
listening?
name is Scott Drapkin. I'm the Director of Development Services. And the purpose for the city engineer's proposal was because the state law puts the burden on the city to provide this type of review when the applicant does not. So we couldn't ask. There's prohibitions of us asking the applicant, or actually maybe not asking as much as the applicant doing that. They don't necessarily need to do that, but there's still a justification that we need to come up with, and the city engineer's proposal was really that. So we didn't obviously prepare a complete engineered analysis of the wall, but it was a wall enough to put in front of the Coastal Commission and let them review it from an environmental perspective. The conclusions of that environmental letter, in my opinion, basically indicate, make sure that it doesn't seem like it's out of line, make sure you comply with your policies of your local coastal program, and we'll see it when it happens. So nothing really more than that, but it's certainly from a perspective of why we did that draft wall design was because the burden was on us to prove that, to justify it.
Understood, thank you.
I just have a couple also. Is the project as designed, as proposed by the applicant, fall within the jurisdiction of the Coastal Commission at this point, the way it's laid out, given its setback from the creek currently?
So the project as designed, the plans that the applicant provided, they are not within the coastal appeal jurisdiction. There are a couple of caveats to that. There's a water study that still needs to be done to determine whether or not a water connection would need to be made out into El Camino Real, which would bring it into the Coastal Commission jurisdiction. But like I said, that has not been done yet, and that will be done during post-entitlement.
If the applicant were to accept the proposal by the city to fix the road per our suggestion, would that incur review by the Coastal Commission?
Yes.
When the evacuation study was done, so this is probably more traffic engineering rather than fire, their report said they did their study. They used assumptions of Saturday as the time to use the calculations to suggest that they don't need to do the bump out or to repair the road. Seems to me that Saturday doesn't take into consideration businesses. I would think a Wednesday afternoon, 2 o'clock, when people are picking up kids from school, because there's a couple of schools in the area, there's businesses operating, people are moving about. Why a Saturday as the benchmark for the calculation that there won't be any impact on evacuation?
Yeah, from a traffic engineering standpoint, and I do have the city traffic engineer with me as well, but I'm going to take a first stab at this, and he's going to yell at me if I'm anywhere off point. So from a traffic engineering standpoint, you look at peak hour traffic. And typically you have 2 peak hours per day. That would be AM peak and then PM peak. And generally speaking, those peak hours are during weekdays because those are the heaviest travel days. It would not be a weekend.
So why would their evacuation report choose a Saturday for their benchmark on page? It's in their traffic study by their CR company that was dated March of 2024. It's on page. They used Saturday as their date. Would be the best option because people are home, more residents are home based on the evacuation. But seems to me that fires don't always come on a Saturday. They kind of come in a crazy part of time. And I think that the fire department's report, that intersection of Rancho Santa Fe Road, well, I guess that's Manchester and El Camino Real, is a pinch point. And that is where most of the Liebenhain, if it's not directed north, is going to come out to that location. So I just wondered why, in your professional opinion, why a Saturday as a benchmark for an evacuation study? I just think that more people would be on the road during the weekday at peak time. So does that invalidate their comment, or is it just they choose the wrong date? I'm just trying to figure out why a Saturday afternoon when people are home or hanging out.
I think that would be a better question focused to the developer's traffic engineer.
Okay.
But I would comment that from a review and discussion with the fire chief and their consideration of the pinch point, that it certainly creates a evacuation impact.
Yeah, I think the staff mentioned that in her presentation.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Also, in the staying on that same topic, they created scenarios 1 and scenarios 2. Did either one of their scenarios assume on the evacuation study take into consideration fixing the road? my guess is if the road were widened, the results of their study would be enhanced. So the corollary to that is if the road isn't widened, does that limit their, I just question the viability of their benchmark and if it included at all the recommendation at the time, because these conversations have been going on about this project for a long time about this one crux issue, but the reports are dated back in 2024 and don't seem to take into consideration any of these proposals. So I'm just curious, does that validate the report? Do they have to do a new report? What happens? I don't know if that's a question there.
So, and this is, I think, both a traffic engineering and a fire department response. So I'm gonna answer in part, and I may also bring up the fire chief as well.
Sure.
So it's my understanding, a fire or an evacuation report, that is different than a traffic impact analysis. So from a traffic impact analysis, there are designated standards for how those are prepared. It's very regimented, and that is something that goes through a very thorough review that has detailed checklists and requirements for how those are prepared. An evacuation report, from my understanding, and I will pass this to the fire chief in just a moment, is evacuation reports do not have the same definity and requirements of how they are prepared. It's a little bit newer of a requirement and an ask from a private development standpoint. So because of that, they haven't evolved to the same criteria as a traffic impact analysis. So because of those reasons, we don't have the ability to require a developer to prepare an evacuation study that meets the same type of criteria as a traffic impact analysis. So with that being said, Fire Chief, is there anything that you would like to add to that?
Good evening, Commissioners. Josh Gordon, Fire Chief for the City of Encinitas. As it relates to the evacuation of El Camino Real in this project, 2023, we did an evacuation plan for Liebenhain, right? And so it highlighted an evacuation route for that community. On there, it doesn't show El Camino Real as being the major evacuation route because we're really focused on the residents going from east to west in that one. But on the incident command side with unified command with the City of Encinitas Fire Department and the Sheriff's Department, it is an evacuation corridor. And the key factors here are if we have a large evacuation coming from with a fire coming from east to west, so we have a conflagration event. We have Rancho Santa Fe, a Liebenhain, and anyone east of us is going to be using these routes. So when you look at the closest evacuation route at the moment would be Manchester. That is going to be, if it is open as a route, it is going to be burdened at some point, right? And so we have the opportunity to have people go north on El Camino Real and then left on Santa Fe or west on Santa Fe. We also have the option of using contraflow. Now, we do try to stay away from contraflow. It is a hard thing to manage, and contraflow is having traffic go opposite in the lane that it's desired, right? The other issue we have is we're going to be having resources come from many different jurisdictions, and so we do want to keep those northbound lanes open for our southern response resources to be coming up into that area to be able to protect those communities and help evacuate those communities. So 2023 evacuation plan as we move towards today, and we're looking at the Palisades fires and making sure that we're being responsible in the way that we're looking at our streets and our roads and how we're maintaining them. If you look at the last few council meetings, we've talked a lot about streets, right? And the fire department has been very clear on widening our roads and having that ability for our fire engines to respond to, as well as evacuations to leave. So that is what we're looking at. I know that there was an evacuation analysis provided, and it was very specific to that community. It did not take in consideration a conflagration event, which is one that will burden all of these roads, and we need the best and most wide roads we can to be able to get the evacuations across the finish line, if you will.
Thank you. Appreciate that. The only other one I had on the, thanks Dan for coming back, was if northbound on El Camino Real, without assuming that the bump out is adjusted, is there a slowdown lane coming into the Sage Canyon? Because now that we have additional 120 units and multiplied by X number of residents, is there a room at the north end existing to slow down and turn into Sage Canyon Road?
So the existing condition going northbound on El Camino Real does have a right turn pocket.
It does.
Going to Sage Canyon Drive.
Okay, and then southbound, you're in the middle, crossing, there's plenty of room in the middle, it's pretty wide.
Right.
In the middle.
Yeah, there is a two-way left turn lane along El Camino Real, so you do have the ability driving southbound to enter the two-way left turn lane and then make a left onto Sage Canyon Drive.
In the engineering and in the proposal to alter the road, is it'd be ideal to have a longer right turn lane, I guess, coming further south, ideally, or is there enough there as is? I mean, I don't, to your specs and to your books and their codes and things like that, is there enough?
Sure. And Commissioner, are you asking more in relation to a speed standpoint, whether vehicles can slow down quickly enough within that
I
distance?
mean, I guess that's what I'm saying, is the
of pocket?
distance, given the speed limit there, given the fact that the bump out is there, I go around the bump out, is there enough room based on density that's going to occur there for me to slow down and make the turn?
There has not been an analysis to that effect. So just off the top of my head, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you just because we haven't looked at it from a traffic engineering perspective. I'm going to look back at my traffic engineer just to we haven't evaluated that right. So yeah, the city staff have not done an independent analysis of the length of that right turn pocket for the added demand of this development.
All right, thank you.
Susan, do you have any questions? I can go if you need a minute with your notes.
I think I'm okay with.
Okay, I just let me find my note. So I just wanted, one thing I wanted to say was that I appreciated the city's efforts here in, the city engineer's efforts in looking at the alternative regarding, putting in the improvements and reaching out to the Coastal Commission to see if there can be a feasible way to make those improvements and bring it into coastal appeal and be able to build a project. So I really appreciate the work that you did and the reaching out to Coastal and sort of maybe to get ahead, to get in front of what could be an issue in the future. So I really appreciated that and all the information that you provided that was related to that. I just had one more question. Let me find my note. My son, when he watches, he always says I don't take very good notes, and I should have him in a better order. So if he's watching, I'm doing it again, and I apologize to him. If I can't find it, I will just move on, and I think, I know what it had to do with traffic, because there was a public comment, and this is going to be to the traffic engineer too. There was a letter regarding whether a traffic light was warranted at the intersection. And so I just wanted staff to speak about whether or not this particular intersection would warrant a traffic light.
Yeah. So first off, Commissioner, I too take bad notes, so you're not alone there. So the reason why a traffic signal was not a request, or I should say a health and safety finding as part of this private development, is because a signal at this location does not meet signal warrants. So because of that, that's not something that we can require of a private developer.
Can you just tell us what a signal warrant is?
Yeah, so there are a myriad of factors that can go into whether or not a signal is warranted, meaning whether we should or can put a signal at a specific intersection. So, obviously we don't want to put a signal at every single intersection. So the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, METCD, it has a warrant analysis that has to be conducted to determine whether or not a signal should be placed in that location. Now, ultimately, City Council has the ability to override what a warrant analysis would show, but basically, in short, those factors, it did not. There are not enough contributing factors to warrant the need at this specific intersection with the existing development and with the proposed development.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any other additional questions at this time? Susan, are you good? I think you said you were okay.
I think most of my things will come up during deliberation. I may have a question for them at that time.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, so at this time, if the applicant would like to give a presentation, now is the time.
Hi, Commissioners, Austin Wormers, applicant, planning staff. Thank you so much for your presentation. Really well done. I know it took us a while to get here, so thank you. Thank you, Christina, for all your hard work. No presentation. We did a presentation last time. I didn't want to burn everybody's time doing the similar presentation. I would like to introduce Tim Hutter to talk about sort of some of our positioning. We still don't think the city has met the threshold that they need to meet. So our position from the last hearing hasn't changed. We appreciate that staff and the agency wants to approve the project, but we don't think it's necessary to put the improvement in. So with that, I'm gonna. Thanks. Yep.
And you're tall. You could actually move that whole entire podium up if you want to.
I was good. Thank you.
Austin doesn't like when I call him short. Well, good evening, everyone. My name's Tim Hutter. I'm an attorney at Allen Matkins. Spoken to many of you before, but I'm here for the applicant, and I think, as Austin said, the developer's position remains the same from our last meeting. We are requesting a density bonus law concession to reduce the requirement for street improvements on El Camino Real. There are certain standards that you have to meet in order to make findings to deny that concession. Staff is recommending, and I presume council is recommending, that you have the basis to do that. We disagree, but I'll just run through a couple of notes from staff's presentation and particularly the staff report. One of the bases on which you could deny an incentive or concession request under the density bonus law is a finding that there would not be a cost reduction associated with the work. I don't think that's one of the issues that we're even debating here tonight, right? Obviously, doing these frontage improvements costs a lot of money. That has an impact on the overall health and viability of the project, and so I don't think we're even debating, again, that the potential for you making that finding. The next question really comes down to an evaluation of the street improvements. And I do want to make clear, and I think it was discussed at pretty good length, including with diagrams last time, that there are street improvements that are planned and acknowledged, including striping and the like, on that street that have been acknowledged by staff to make traffic safety conditions better in the area than they are today. The question really presented to the city in order to deny the incentive request is whether you can make the findings that approving the project without those the additional improvements that are required would cause a specific adverse impact based on objective written standards that cannot be mitigated. The quantities that and specific and adverse impacts are defined further. One of the things is that it needs to be an objective and quantifiable impact. The quantities that have been identified in the staff report specifically relate to 68 estimated additional pedestrian or bicycle trips each day and 720 estimated motor vehicle trips. The pedestrian and bicycle trips are even linked to certain vulnerable populations, folks with strollers, those who may be disabled and in a wheelchair, or cyclists or other people that are needing to have access in that area. But the point is that there's no evidence before you that shows that an estimated 68 daily trips would result in a specific adverse impact. And that's the threshold, that's the place where, unfortunately, we believe that staff's report falls short. Instead, what you're hearing, whether it's 68 daily trips for pedestrians and cyclists, or 720 estimated motor vehicle trips, is that more cars and more people are likely to have more accidents, and that's the basis of this finding. Yes, there are many, as you said, Commissioner Whitaker, there are many studies that are cited relating to national and local and state guiding principles for planning and for roadway standards. But the question presented to you is whether you can link 68 additional daily trips or 720 motor vehicle trips and say that increase in this area is going to be the thing that trips you over. Instead, what we hear is any increase in this area would cause some additional risk, and that's not what the standard calls for. There were multiple references, even in the city engineer's memo, which again is very detailed, to the correlation between increased population and these safety standards. The correlation is not a causation. And the idea that the additional or the incentive approval would be causing a specific adverse impact is the thing that you are asked to evaluate. We understand that staff and your legal counsel disagree. It will likely become a matter for appeal to the city council, HCD consideration, and potentially litigation. We understand this is a complicated issue, and there is not a lot of guidance. Even the limited guidance that was referred to as far as the HCD technical assistance letter to Contra Costa, I do want to clarify, in that situation, factually, the Planning Commission for the Contra Costa County denied the project entirely. So they were not in this situation that staff's recommending to you. They had denied the project entirely and not gone to the effort of trying to make findings, the type of findings that you're considering tonight. HCD wrote them a letter and said, you can't do that. And I don't think that you all would contend that you could deny the project, deny the incentive without making those findings. The reason why we're having this detailed discussion tonight is because you are attempting to make those findings. So HCD wrote them a letter that said, which you guys have all reviewed, that said you can't do that. If you wanted to do that, the thing to do would be to condition the project, approve the project, but condition it to include these frontage improvements, which you have a problem with, but make your findings and prove it to us. That letter was issued. The next day, an appeal was heard by the Contra Costa Board of Supervisors, and they reversed the Planning Commission and approved the project and granted the incentive, very much like what you're being asked to do. So the irony, of course, of looking at Contra Costa and of that project is that in that situation, considering a very similar fact pattern, the Board of Supervisors there overturned a Planning Commission appeal and decided to grant the incentive that was being requested. Here, that is our request. We accept, or I think from the applicant's perspective, approval of the project is obviously their end goal. They've wanted that all along. They've been, this is our third Planning Commission meeting in addition to the CPP. I think they fully expect to go to City Council, but saving us that trip would be delightful. We'd love that. It would require granting the incentive, and it would require thoughtful consideration by you all of whether you can make that finding that you're required to make under state law. So with that request, Obviously, members of the development team are here to answer additional questions. I'm happy to answer additional questions if needed. The one final thing that we would ask is that we are requesting a vote tonight. Hopefully, we've gotten in early enough. It's only 7 o'clock. I know you've had some late meetings lately, but the goal is whether it is up or down in our favor or against, we'd like to get to a vote so that we can keep this process moving. So we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant at this time? Do you have a question for Susan, for the applicant?
I have a question or two for the applicant.
All right. Not sure who it's going to be to. For the attorney or for who? Why don't you both come up?
No, for the applicant, not the attorney.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't do as well.
So my main question I'm concerned about is, I'm wondering who you're marketing the units to. What will your population be that you predict to inhabit the apartments?
Well, if you read, I have a unique, because I'm an owner-operator of buildings, I have a unique insight into demographic and who lives in our building. And I actually appreciate you bringing that up. And I'd be interested, these are renters, so these are not owners. We don't condo map our buildings, people are renting. And in your package, you'll see a few letters from people who reached out that need housing in Encinitas. So the demographic are renters, non-owners that want to live in Encinitas. And a lot of feedback that I get are children who live in Encinitas that no longer can afford, adult children that want to come back, but they can't afford. There's nowhere else to live in Encinitas that's rentable. So, yeah.
What would you say the typical age might be of those people coming in?
Believe
that
it
are
or-
renters,
Yeah,
that are maybe children of people like myself?
Yeah, it's a mix. So honestly, it is between 30 and 40-year-olds is a big demographic because people can't afford to purchase homes. I think in a different generation, it was different. People were buying homes between 20s and 30s. That's no longer the case, especially for North County. And then the other thing we see is an older demographic. So what's happening is because that generation can't buy houses, that older generation is actually giving their houses to their children that they grew up in, either to live or not, build ADUs, things like that, or the older generation steps out because they don't have children and they live in smaller spaces. So it's a combination of that sort of two demographic
So it'd be a
things.
mix.
It's a mix, yeah.
And when you think about that population, are you considering their safety a high priority?
Very high priority. I wouldn't propose something that I ethically believed would cause.
In the area that your project is located, are you aware of some of the things that people in that area are utilizing, such as, the Greek Orthodox Church across the street, basically, and then there's, the Art Institute, and then there's the Nature Center down the road, and there's the school, across the street, and a couple other schools nearby. I think there'll be a lot of pedestrian and bike traffic potentially, and more vehicles, of course.
Yeah, just anecdotal. I went to elementary school in Encinitas, so super familiar with the area. So definitely a local, which is cool to be trying to develop something in your backyard.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
There were some emails that were sent in via a website that said Sage Canyon Community Input at gmail.com.
Yeah, that was our CPP email. Instead of people like emailing me personally, I just set up an email where I can get feedback from communities. And I always think if we name it the project name, they know what I'm talking about.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What is the ratio of 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms to studios in this project? We just had a long conversation about families. And I'd asked you before last time, given your history here in the city and in fact, you went to school here, we don't have a lot of open space on your project.
We don't.
Where's the closest park?
Patrick?
No, I'm asking you.
No.
You're the resident.
I don't know.
I asked you 2 questions last time.
I know you did.
Where's the
I know you
parks
did.
where the kids can go play?
Yes.
And where's the bus stop?
Yeah, I remember.
Okay. And the answers are?
Still don't know.
Okay.
He knows.
That was months ago.
Years. Years.
Great.
Years.
All right. So
I just don't know the
Okay.
exact. I know you're pulling my leg. I know you're serious.
I'm
You're very
I'm
serious.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
So, sure, architect can come up and tell me if
Sure.
we're talking families here, and it's important to build
It's a
mixed-use
mix-
projects. I understand.
Yeah.
But I'd love to know, from you guys on the record. Sure, I can go to the designs, and I
Yeah.
think it's in the report too, and I can pull it up. But I might as well ask your staff,
Yeah.
your consultant, what that is.
Yeah. So, break down some of your questions. You're asking me about Unimix.
Yes.
Roughly, it's a mixture of 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
It's 50-50, roughly, is the mix. There's not a ton of 3s.
Right.
Bedrooms. I'd love to be able to put more 3 bedrooms in all of the buildings I have. I just can't fit the square footage on the way it lays out. I think that was question number 1. What were your other questions? Sorry.
The next
I got
question
caught
was,
up
well,
defending.
once you give me the ratio of 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms to studios, then
Yeah.
the next question would have been on the affordable side, because all of this really is about affordable housing. You're doing all of this to be able to build affordable housing. Your densities, your number
Yeah.
of units, we've gone from, I think, the base density, we've talked this in the past about gross and net. There it is.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, then you can just point to that and
So-
walk us through. So the issue then is we have 96 units under the base density, right?
So-
That's under the Encinitas municipal code would give you 96 units. Of that inclusionary, you have to do 20%, right? So that's 20 of 90%. Help me out. It's 20
Yeah,
units.
whatever the-
22. It's
yeah.
20 units.
Okay.
So now what we're seeing is using density bonus laws.
Yeah, thanks.
Asking for the concessions, asking for the waivers. You're going to 120, and the city gets 2 more units,
So,
right? So,
Okay.
so bear
I'll
with
wait
me.
till
I
you
just
finish.
want to make a rhetorical statement. Like 96 is the base density under the code. You're using housing density bonus law to get to 120, and our base code gives me 20 units on the 96. So the city has to give up under state law, and this is just state the fact. Yes, Bob, we are getting more units, 24 more units, and I'm giving you 2 more affordable. So of those, what's the ratio of affordables for 1s and 2s? In the meantime, I've got to give you 6 waivers, and you're asking for a concession. That's the application.
So this is a common misconception that happens across the board that happens occasionally. And I think I want to make a distinction, and then I'm going to answer your question.
Right.
So there is capital A affordable housing, which is what you're describing, which is deed restricted affordable housing, that you're talking about the percentage and what penetration level that becomes to and what's the state law, so that it's deed restriction. But what the issue is for housing is if I go buy a house in Encinitas, the square footage that I can buy by code is any new house is 2,000 square feet, and the cost to me burdens that I can never pay for it. So then there's this lowercase affordable housing. I'm building smaller units that allows people to rent and get into a neighborhood they can't ever afford to get into. Because the alternative is, the real life alternative is I go, okay, I'm gonna go buy a house or rent a house that's 24, 36, 1,700 square feet, whatever the number is. You want to do both. It's not a one size fits all. So there's an affordable restrictive that we do, and I think is good to put in sort of housing, what the state asks you to do. But I think you want to couple that with what's actually happening, which is the additional units is actually lowercase affordable housing. It gets mixed in conversation, but to the user with his dollar, it doesn't get mixed because he can't get into the neighborhood. He can't live in Encinitas. And so I just wanted to point out that distinction.
And I appreciate that. But
Yeah.
other projects that have come before us have very low. You're coming in at all of your units at 80% of AMI. So I don't see a lot of concessions, to get the extra units. You're coming in at 80% of AMI. We've had, in your other projects, do you have any very low? I think you had another project before us.
Other projects in Encinitas?
I believe.
No, not.
Quail Gardens doesn't have any 60% of AMI?
Honestly, I don't remember off the top of my head. I just don't remember.
It's your project.
I understand. I don't
Okay,
remember.
you don't remember.
I'm not here tonight to defend a project that was.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to ask you to defend the project. I'm
Yeah.
asking you to compare and contrast your statement saying that, look, you're asking me for concessions and waivers. You're asking the city and the city commissioners for concessions and waivers.
Yes.
using density bonus law. And
Yes.
I'm saying, great, you've just come in, you've talked about housing, you've talked about the unit mix, which I still haven't heard. And I looked at and made notes that you have only 2 affordable on the top floor, and most of them are in the middle, and most of them are at the bottom. So how you've sprinkled them throughout the project, that's another consideration. But, look, what I'm concerned about is you're building a project that is at the maximum amount of revenue, which is the 80% of the AMI for the 24 units that you're getting. And you're trying to talk about living in a community, which we all live in, and providing variable income levels. And I'm not quite, your document basically said 80% of AMI because there's a whole net loss calculation in the report. So you're not doing very low, you're doing the highest you can get. Correct?
I'm trying to understand what you're trying to.
I'm trying to understand, you stand before us.
Yeah.
Asking for waivers and concessions.
Yes.
Stating that we have to give it to you, according to your attorney.
Yeah.
And you stand before us talking about growing up here, talking about a community here. We've talked about safety. We've talked about fire evacuations. And yet you're barely doing the bare minimum. I've gone through and you're one tree over on the bare minimum.
I don't have to do 20%. I could have presented a project with 0 affordable and had a completely different attempt in front of you.
I don't think under the housing density bonus law, you could have come here and done 100% market rate.
Well,
That's
I could have
the whole
proposed
point.
a 0% affordable.
Yeah, you could, but that's not before us here. If you wanted to
I know,
build a
but-
for-rent project, you could have done that.
Yeah.
But you didn't. So
Why?
we're only dealing with
Why?
what.
I mean, that's the nature. I feel like I'm arguing with you. Sorry,
No,
I didn't
I'm
mean
not.
to.
I'm not. I'm just trying to understand. You've come before us with a project that across the application is the bare minimum of trees, the bare minimum. You've asked for waivers of square footage. There's no play area. You don't know where the parks are. You don't know where the bus stops are. And yet I guess I feel it's disingenuous to me standing here before me or before us in the city and not being able to tell me these things and just agree, Bob, you're right. You know what? It's 80% affordable. I went to 80%. I went to the maximum that I could do to make my project pencil. That's what I did. And you're not. You're like, I need all these different things to make it work.
I do. I mean, I know you want me to say something that's not authentic.
All right,
But I can't.
If I recall in one of the documents, there was, am I
Yeah.
not supposed to be doing this?
Another question, if
I'm
you
sorry,
don't mind?
I was
Just
on a
a
roll,
quick
so I'll-
one. I was just wondering,
Yeah,
have
sorry,
you ridden your bike
didn't mean
past
to.
the project?
Come again? I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Have you ridden a bike past the project
I
site?
personally have not. I've been to the project many times, but I did not ride a bike.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That path was not going anywhere.
Maybe we could,
Either staff or was there a document that stated the amount of road improvement cost at about $178,000? Do you recall, does anybody recall seeing a breakdown in either a staff document or a report somewhere talking about the cost of the road improvement?
Yes, I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember just from a math standpoint? You
No,
don't-
it was somewhere around that. I mean, you're pretty accurate.
All
I
right,
can ask
so-
these guys the exact dollar amount, but you're pretty accurate.
All right, so given my experience, it's about $400,000 a door to build this. 120 units, it's $48 million. $180,000 is less than 0.4% of the total cost of this project. Now, materially, I can't see your council comes up and says, material costs and things like that. 0.4% on a pro forma, it's not material. You might think it is. I don't think it is. That's a question of, that's opinion. That's fine. It's not my money. But
Yeah.
but that's not a material amount of money in the big scheme of things. So I just want to go on record saying, 180 grand to do the road, and it's less than 0.5% of total cost.
Well, I think
It's my opinion.
Yeah,
You don't have to,
I-
you don't have to respond.
Oh.
It's just me saying it's not that much money.
Right, and maybe that tends toward more deliberations.
Sorry, all done.
Sorry.
But I would be interested in hearing the answers to where the closest park is and closest bus stop. I believe you have some. Can you come up? So we just need, if anybody's listening to this, they need to know who's speaking. And you can't get picked up by the mic back there.
Hello, my name is Patrick Zabraki, project manager with Wormers Properties. The closest park is Cardiff Sports Park, which is approximately 2 miles away.
What about
To
neighborhood
the north,
parks?
and then there's also the hiking trails, which are just around the corner, about 1.75 of a mile, if you're walking.
What about a neighborhood
8
park in any other communities around there? There are some communities.
Those are the parks that I'm aware of at the
Okay.
moment. If there are others, let me know, but those are the ones that I've seen and gone to.
Okay. And I don't think there's a bus route on El Camino Real.
There are two.
Go ahead.
Oh, where are they?
There are two bus routes. I think it's 309 and 806.
And do they go past the project?
Yeah. I don't know the distance of the closest bus stop, I think, is up at Lucadia.
Wait.
But I do know that there are bus routes that go,
Lucadia Boulevard?
yeah. I'm sorry.
There are a couple of
mixing
bus
that up.
stops a little bit north of Santa Fe Drive on El Camino Real.
On North Santa Fe Drive?
Yeah.
North of Santa Fe
Just
Drive.
north of Santa Fe Drive.
Okay.
Okay, the reason
I could probably help. So
Those questions are better.
the December report talks about the transit from a bus route perspective, if the commission wants to know what that, it's, the project site is within 0.9 mile walking distance of the North County Transit District bus route, 304, that runs along Santa Fe Drive.
So on the west side of the street.
Yeah, the bus route runs about every 40, I think it says every 40 minutes or so.
So you'd have to walk up the street. Thank you.
Yeah.
You'd walk north, take it at the light, and then cross?
There seems to be a bus stop on both the east and the west side of El Camino Real, just north of Santa Fe Drive.
Yep. It swings out. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions for me? No?
Have any other?
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, open up for public comment. Dina, do we have any speakers?
Yeah, we have 4 speakers, and with time donations, it's about 24 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Our first speaker is Carrie Weisenberger.
So I just heard a word, and I think it really needs to sink in for the Planning Commission and for the council. Disingenuous. I think that's a great word. I want to talk about why I'm here. I have 3 grandsons. They're 2 years old and younger. I walk to the church, Redeemer Presbyterian Church, from my house in Sage Canyon. I go down that street, not every Sunday, but Sundays, and I'm inches away from 60-mile-an-hour traffic. There's a curb there. It's about 2 inches high. It's asphalt. Nothing else to stop those cars from coming over that curb. It scares me every time I do it. So not agreeing to put in some safety-based measures as a feature of this project is scary to me. I think it's disingenuous, actually. I don't want this project at all, personally. And I find that you're probably not going to be able to stop it. But it's purely from a safety standpoint. And I went through the staff report today and looked it over. There's 8 times in there where it says in order to act or deny, it requires a planning commission to find an adverse effect on safety. There's a couple of those in that same report. We heard the fire guy here that it's going to, and the report itself says it would be difficult or impossible to use contraflow to evacuate people. That sounds like a pretty good safety challenge. The developer says there's no evacuation project, no risk. In that same report, it says it adds 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Only 2 minutes? 2 minutes a car? Is that what it is? I don't know. 2 minutes times 100 and, how many units is it? 130 units? 120 units? Plus our 33 units on Sage Canyon, 150 cars. Probably more than one car per unit, but let's say 150 times 2 minutes. That's 300 minutes, that's 5 hours. That's a lot of delay in the case of a wildfire. The developer's doing their job. They're trying to make money. We're left with the danger. I know my time's up. I'll finish up. I think the answer, I think the staff are doing a great job, but I think they're really asking for the wrong thing, a safety improvement on El Camino Real. I think what they really should be required to do is to add their own entrance, build a bridge
I'm going to
over
have
Lux
to ask
Canyon.
you to wrap it up, okay?
10 seconds. We had to do it for Sage Canyon. I think they should do it. That'll probably make the project unfeasible. That's okay with me. But I think that this project, if it's going to go forward, we got to expect a little more cooperation from the developer and not to be so disingenuous.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Eric Kusik. Eric has 2 time donations. If you could raise your hand, please. Aaron Chuv, okay, and James Struthers. All right, I see you. Thank you.
Well, that was generous of your time donations. I don't think I'll take all that. I think you guys did a great job analyzing everything. I would, of course, prefer not to have a 5-story building with all those big slopes, but I realize there's some things we can impact and there's some things we can't. But as a taxpayer of Encinitas, I don't want to pay for a road improvement that the developer should pay. Anyone who bought that lot knows that that's going to have to happen. You just know it by walking there. And if there's a threat of lawsuit or anything, I think you take a jury out there and stand there and go, yeah, the developer doesn't think this is a safety hazard, adding 700 trips. I think logic would dictate that pretty quick. I have 4 kids. I would love for them to live close to me. I think that's great that we're adding housing units. I just don't want to. I don't want to pay for that road work that has to happen as part of the development. And then 180,000. Is that all? Is that all we think that it'll take to make it like 3 lanes with a buffer, bike buffer, and everything? Or is that 180,000 just the striping that's included in your current plans? And because I think when I read it, that was part of what's currently drawn on the plans with a little bit of striping and stuff like that. I think the amount of work that either the city would have to pay if somehow we gave into the concession would be a lot more than $180,000. Because you're right, it would need a retaining wall. It would probably need a lot of protection. It would probably, like you mentioned, maybe go to coastal because now we're getting into that creek. It's a big deal. And so I understand why you're pushing back. But it's a big safety thing. The other part about it is the parking. It's a low parking ratio. So that parking lot's going to fill up. Guests are going to not know where to park. If you look, the only place to park on that side of the street is south in front of the churches, which means people will be walking on that dirt path that you do with your grandkids. Any visitors that can't find parking are going to be walking on that dirt path. That's a direct impact because of the project. Those 68 trips or whatever they are. And then there's a lot of people from my neighborhood here. They know I live on a corner, and I see all the traffic that comes into our neighborhood, which is Pacific Ranch, which is right above that it's not only the residents now, but there are so many Amazon drivers in their private cars, that are doing the 2-hour delivery or 4-hour delivery. I got to imagine with 120 people living there, it's going to be a constant cycle of people hitting the, buy now thing and coming in. So 700 sounds like a lot, but there might be more than that. And so as a person who voted against the sales tax hike in Encinitas, as a resident, I don't want to pay for the development of widening the road because of the project. He's already putting 2 stories higher than city code would normally allow, which is going to be a lot of rent developed. I think you can pay for it. That's my opinion. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Stuart Grauer with 2-time donations, Alex Bernadette, and Paul Weddle. And I do have a email to pass out, or a paper from.
If you could just wait 1 second for that to be passed out to us before you begin. Thank you.
Should we read this before, or is he going to read this?
Sorry?
Hang on, I wasn't sure if we're supposed to read this ahead of time.
I would say take a minute, just take a minute to peruse it, just so we're prepared.
Should we post this for everybody else to see, since we have it? Is that one of those things
I
that's now?
I don't know if that's required. Okay, let's
Nope.
not do
All
that
right,
then.
thank you.
Let's just let the speaker speak. I think he's got 9 minutes, right? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much, everyone, and thanks. Great job, and staff, that was really fascinating. And the detail that you deal with is amazing. My name is Stuart Grauer. I've been a resident and educator and surfer in the neighborhood for 34 years. I appreciate the complexity of housing law and the constrained role that the commission is operating under. And I've spent quite a few months studying this project and the staff findings. I understand that the staff is denying the developer his requirement that to avoid standard public frontage improvements on El Camino Real based on public health and safety. And I have 4 questions. Number 1, CEQA's no possibility exemption. That requires factual certainty. Given that this 120-unit project involves major grading, very tall retaining walls, proximity to a creek, and is located in the coastal zone, does the commission in fact find that there's no possibility of significant environmental impact as required to rely on that exemption? More specifically, does the commission's reliance on that exemption reflect a factual finding of no possible impact, or is it a legal conclusion driven by the statutory limits on the commission's review? Second question. Given that the staff has concluded, and the prior commission already found, that feasible options exist to construct fully compliant public frontage improvements along South El Camino Real, consistent with the city's adopted street, bicycle, and pedestrian standards, while keeping Lux Creek flowing, and given that this segment of the roadway lacks continuous sidewalk and bicycle facilities, not to mention parking, not to mention, have any of you driven on El Camino Real South in the afternoon on a weekday lately? Under these circumstances, can the commission confirm that the approval of this project is expressly conditioned on the design and construction of those complete frontage improvements prior to occupancy? And further, given the applicant's stated refusal to construct the improvements, can the commission confirm that the conditions of approval are written with sufficient clarity and specificity to avoid partial or interim or deferred compliance? And I wonder if a bike lane and a sidewalk, even those, could solve the safety impacts here, especially given the speed people consistently drive on El Camino Real and the impossibility of turning into that neighborhood under these circumstances. I want to ask a third question about livability and design. Given that the community compatibility under the general plan includes not only impacts on surrounding properties, but also the lived experience of future residents. Can the Commission confirm whether the project, as conditioned, adequately addresses the livability and equity impacts of placing certain residential units directly facing very tall retaining walls with minimal landscape buffering, particularly where affordable units are involved? And I think you were bringing that out, that we know who is going to be looking at a massive retaining wall every day, all day. And given a waiver that no neighbor could possibly support for that wall. And my fourth question, given that this project, while statutorily exempt from CEQA, is ultimately not going to be exempt from the Coastal Act or the local coastal program, can the Commission confirm that its findings demonstrate consistency with the Coastal Act requirements regarding visual resources, including scenic quality and public views, sensitive habitat protection, and public access, including parking, and that appropriate coastal oversight remains intact? Thank you for the care you bring to these decisions. It means the world to all of us neighbors, and thank you for the service you provide.
Great. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Cyril Light.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. My name is Cyril Light. I live in Encinitas. I'd like to bring a biking perspective to the proposal that's in front of you. And I couldn't agree more with what Stuart mentioned in terms of his 4 points. But I bike all the time on both Rancho Santa Fe Road, El Camino Real and Rancho Santa Fe Road. And just today, riding on Manchester, going eastbound, you take your life in your hands when you bike on that road. It's a beautiful road. It's a 2-lane country road. And it ends up in this massive, huge development that's been approved, but nobody's living in it yet because it's not finished construction at the corner of Rancho Santa Fe and Manchester. My concern is all that traffic, especially during any emergency, is going to be coming down Manchester Road, and it's going to be total gridlock as it now has to go right or left on South El Camino Real. And I think that's a huge issue. I'm not sure it's been addressed by the traffic division. It may or may not have been, especially because the traffic doesn't exist yet, but it will within 6 months. And how difficult that will be for the residents, especially in face of any disaster in that area. I have a minute or so left. Can I give that to my wife to speak at this point? She lives in the same household as me.
That's fine. Or
So
she can fill out a new speaker slip.
Well, we share.
Oh, that's fine. I wasn't sure the process.
Can I have the full
Does she
time?
will she need to fill out a speaker slip? Because you can fill it out afterwards. Just fill out a speaker slip
Okay.
afterwards, okay?
So I just implore you, and Commissioner
And can you
Pendergrass.
can you give us your name too, please?
Susan Vita Cannell Light.
Thank you.
I live in Pacific Ranch. I implore you especially, I think the traffic report is not complete. That new development that we rode by today, considering it coming down Manchester, which is woefully deficient at this point, El Camino Real, which is total gridlock without either of these developments, when they merge there. We live at the top in Pacific Ranch. We live above the estuary, which is all dried plants. If there's a fire and we come down, that's our only way out of the development is down to Manchester. It's going to be total gridlock. It already is. I'm not sure that the traffic report has considered the impact of that new development at the top, the development down there, and at this point in time, El Camino Real is a mess. You know, I used to run that road, that area by Sage Canyon. I don't think the traffic report is adequate for you as commissioners to do your job in saying whether or not it's protecting your constituents, your community. I think it's premature to bring to this commission until that traffic report has taken into account daily traffic, the potential for a disaster during daily traffic when there are kids, when there are workers, and everything else, along with everyone else doing their daily activities. I'm not hearing that's done. And I'm not hearing at all that the developers has any concern about the other development, this development, and any concerns for public safety on El Camino Real. Is that my time? So I implore you, public safety, the development itself is a monster, but public safety is your job to protect us. I'm not going to be able to get out of that development in total gridlock. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does the applicant want to make any additional comments after public comments? You're entitled
Vice Chair
to.
Ryan, we do have one more speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have one more
Sorry.
speaker. That's okay.
Got snuck in at the
All
last
right.
minute. Okay, our final speaker is Jose Cherbowski.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to speak. Thank you for all the work that you are doing. I'm going to speak from another perspective, just from a human being that I live in Encinitas since 23 years ago. I went here to the city asking when they have a sign that this place is going to be selling many years ago, maybe 15 years, I don't know. They told me that you can build 10 homes at that time, 10 homes. Now they are doing 120. I am just speaking about, there is something special in this number. It's 1,200% bigger than what's going on 15 years ago. No 100%, not 200%, more than 1,100%. If there is something, this is something that maybe, speaking about the people that is living in Encinitas, I think is something wrong. I can continue speaking about different things. I love Encinitas. I know that maybe we need to continue to build places for new people, but I don't think that 120 places in that small area with all the challenges that we have and with all the native plants that they are around is a place for 120. I drove today at 6 in the morning in all the areas of Encinitas looking about what they built in El Camino Real. I can say that most of the buildings that they built in the last 10 years, they are between 2 and 3 floors, no more than that. This is 5 floors and 120 from 1,200. I think there is something wrong. And the last land that I arrived today in the morning was going out from the freeway in Manchester and the exit, taking to Miracosta College, and there is a big new land that there are no more strawberries there. Today I am speaking about Pacific Ranch and all the people of Encinitas. I am speaking about this project, but tomorrow will be another people. And I hope that the other people will think about me, about us, because everybody lives in Encinitas, and we need another type of project for that land. I am open to see something there, but not this project of 120 that represent more than 1,200% of the beginning of the building. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any more? Okay. So would the applicant like to make any additional comments after? You don't have to. I just wanted to make it the time available to you.
I think the only thing I want to add to it is I think it's important to remind the commissioners tonight that the staff is recommending approval based on all of what you heard today, because I've met the thresholds. They've worked really hard to get the project where it is. I understand there's a nuanced argument to be had legally, but just a reminder, thank you guys for your consideration. I'm here to answer any other questions you guys may have that come up.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'm going to close the public comments and start deliberation. Does anybody want to start?
I don't mind starting.
Susan will start.
Well, first of all, thank you, staff, for the excellent work. And I appreciate that you're bringing a project to us that has affordable housing, because you know that we need affordable housing. I have ridden my bike many times on that road past that very site because I live in New Encinitas and I represent New Encinitas for the Planning Commission. And your project is in New Encinitas. So I can tell you that when you ride on the El Camino Real and you're headed on the west side and you're headed south, you feel pretty safe because there is a buffer in the bike lane. And actually, it's pretty wide. And there are a lot of bikes and kids on that road. When at the times that I ride, I've seen parents with kids. I've seen kids by themselves. You're probably aware that Brody was killed, a kid who was 15 at the time, on El Camino Real, even on that better side of the road, the east side. My son turned 15 Tuesday. It's on my mind, okay? We live in that community. We know there were 5 deaths in the first 5 months of 2025 of pedestrians and vehicles. We know our community is becoming less safe every day. And we know that part of it is that there are more residents coming in, more development. And part of it is that those people are not necessarily from here originally, and they're not necessarily as careful about their driving habits. But regardless of that, I have some other things to bring up to you. Believe that it was in 2022 that they added the bridge that crosses over the lagoon and the two-way bike lane down just south of the community college. And I have to tell you, it's a delight. It's wonderful to have a two-way bike path. My gosh, if we could have that, that would be wonderful. But we're not asking for the sky and the moon in asking for a protected bike lane. I think that's a pretty minimal ask, actually. It's not a big deal to ask for a little bit of safety on that side of the road, especially considering our deaths that we've had in Encinitas of pedestrians and bikes, and the fact that you're asking for a lot from us. I asked about your population because I wanted to know what ages would be inhabiting these rental units. And just for your information, I consider rental units okay, but I consider that it would be better if you had some for sale for the stability and longevity of your tenants. But let's say that they're renters, so they're probably not going to stay there forever. Let's say that they're 30 to 40 years old, or like you said, they may be downsizing from bigger homes and, moving in at a senior age. At a senior age, you're looking at their disability and mobility being lower, and the possibility of wanting to keep walking, to increase their bone density and for other health reasons. They're trying. My neighbor had a heart valve surgery, and she now walks to try to improve her cardiac health. So those seniors are going to be on foot or in their motorized chair possibly, and we really need to provide for that so that they can be safe. The 30 to 40 crowd are prime families that will have 1 or 2 kids perhaps, and they'll be pushing strollers, and they really need a sidewalk and a protected bike lane. They're going to be taking their kids down to the nature center for those family Sundays. First Sunday is family day at the nature center. I've taken my kid many times when he was smaller. And there are other amenities that are up and down that street. Getting to the high school down Santa Fe would mean that kids would ride north on the east side they'd ride north on the east side and then, go across over down Santa Fe, down to SDA Academy High School. And so I think you'd be seeing quite a bit of pedestrian and bike traffic with your tenants. And I know you want safety because I asked you and you told me you want safety for your tenants, right? And we want safety for everybody in Encinitas, not just my son, not just your tenants, for everybody. I do see bike clubs on El Camino Real also. Since that two-way and bridge over to Solana over the lagoon was put in, you'll see biking groups, you'll see hiking groups on those paths. And also because of the farmers market, the Cardiff Farmer Market, we see an awful lot of walkers and bikers, the people that decide, well, let's walk down to the market because we now can do that. It's there and it's an amenity and it's something they want to do. I feel you're obligated to apply the relevant objective design, safety, and infrastructure standards for the benefit of our community safety and your own tenant safety. Their impacts visually and aesthetically of that retaining wall, which I believe you put in to avoid the development going closer to Lux Creek. So thank you for avoiding Lux Creek. However, aesthetically, the site is already elevated for the buildable portion. And so you're now, what was it, 73 feet or something in the air with the, which is, I don't know, do have a question for staff. Is 73 feet our tallest in Encinitas?
I believe so. I have a slide that gives me some facts on that. Give me just a moment while I compare.
Thanks. So while she pulls that up, I'll continue and hopefully we'll see that. Oh, she's got it.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah, 73 feet is the tallest that we've got in the city. What you're looking at on the screen, and I apologize if the font is small, but it is a summary of the housing
Oh, that's
element
okay.
sites.
You've answered my question, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate your taking the time to pull up a slide that shows us the detail. So, yeah, I think that the huge retaining is risky in any event. I'm an architect. I just happen to be one. And I think that the design is absolutely to maximize profit with very little consideration for the community aesthetic and very little consideration for the safety of the community. It's very saddening. It hurts me as an architect when I see something designed this way because I would never do it. So the project's environmental status ignores Lux Canyon Creek by skirting it, basically. It's a sensitive wetland habitat, and it runs along the entire front of the site. It would be wonderful to see you put some thought into your project. You could put in some signage or about Lux Creek. You could do so many things that might be very cool and beneficial for the community and the people that are going to be walking by to explain what's going on this site and what you've done with the site as far as pushing back to avoid Lux Creek or, different things that you could do, but we're not hearing it. I'm not hearing any sensitivity to the natural habitat that you're so close to, the ecological reserve of San Elijo, Manchester Preserve on the other side. I mean, I do see gnat catchers, I do see all the other wildlife in the area. In my own backyard in New Encinitas, I have cams, and in my front yard I have cams, and I catch a lot of wildlife on them. I've seen bobcats on my cams. I've seen coyotes and all kinds of smaller critters. So basically, for me, living in that area, I can see that, and being an architect, I can see that your whole motivation is profit and taking advantage of the concessions, waivers, and things like that. But I personally agree with staff that we should deny the request for concession. Because the state mandates that we upzoned some land and give it a status that allows for density, you're entitled to the waivers, but I believe we have safety grounds for, considering there was a death on El Camino Real in 2023, and it was a 15-year-old, and that we're adding a population that potentially has young people living there. And I think that it only makes sense. This is the tallest, biggest thing that we're putting in on El Camino Real. I just very concerned and very worried for the safety in my jurisdiction. As far as the lack of sensitivity to the wetland, I think California Coastal Commission spoke about it, and they wanted to know why. Why are you putting that retaining wall? But you know why they asked that question, don't you? Yes, they wanted you to explain that you're skirting Lux Creek to avoid getting into CEQA and other problems that would be more costly for you. I'm not going to push you there. I'm not going to push you on the CEQA, even though I really do see this location as sensitive environmental area, because the North County group has already called this sub-area Habitat Conservation Plan needed for Encinitas. So the North County MHCP has drafted a plan for this area that includes this site and some other areas nearby as being sub-areas for habitat conservation. Also, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife consider it critical habitat for the gnatcatcher and other species. The biological survey admits that, we don't see everything on the site when we go, but they did see certain site flora and fauna, and they listed it. So I do see it as a conservation area because of the reports, and I feel that this was a poor choice for upzoning. But the city did it before I was a planning commissioner. I had nothing to do with it. If I could have objected at that time, I would have, probably. So here we are. So I'm not going to push you on CEQA because what's done is done there, but I am going to push you on the safety issue, and I certainly don't want my 15-year-old to have to be riding on that road and be unsafe. And I think the retaining is a big problem. I think it's too much retaining for the site, and I think the height aesthetically is, how can I put it, an affront and a slap in the face to the community, because it will stick out as such a, we are going to force this on you, this project, because you can't do anything about it. And so I think it's rude to the community, and I think that if possible, it should be sent back to California Coastal Commission regarding that retaining area. But I definitely think we should deny the concession of skipping the frontage improvements, which really are needed for safety.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
Thank you. So I do share a lot of the community's concerns regarding the project, and the upzoning of the location. I guess I'm looking at a project at this location. I can be very surprised by the fact that it was an R30.
No, the people of the city of Encinitas voted on the sites that were going to be R30. So, and this was one of them.
it can be quite surprising when you start looking at the actuality of the location.
Oh, no, the people of Encinitas never voted for these sites to be upzoned. They did not vote for this.
No, but there were several, well, we don't need to go into the details, but there were a lot of different sites that were put out into the
Yes.
community, and then the community, through a lot of many public meetings and online surveys and things like that, we got to this point.
Certainly,
So we
it's,
can't, so just, I'm going to jump in real quick for Jose, who's in the audience, is that a lot of laws have changed since you approached about buying the site, and only 10 homes could be built on it at that time. We do have the R30 overlay, we do have the density bonus laws. So in the amount of time that you went and looked at the property until now, the 120 units can legally be built under, if under, what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, it's not outside the realm. Yes. So I mean, it can be built. 120 units can be built.
yeah.
Actually, 145
Right,
units.
that's true.
Per the density bonus law, they could actually build more, but there's probably a cost-benefit analysis for that. But
Yes.
they could actually build a bigger project than what's proposed. Okay, well, there you go. Well, 300, okay, so he's telling us 300. Okay.
You can, with the new state assembly bills that are out there. Anyways, it was in my presentation last time. Okay, sorry.
Certainly, those things can
Go
be
ahead.
very surprising.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I find that it's always interesting the diagrams that are presented to us in picture form and the angles that they take to present them. I think what the reality of it really looking like, if you were standing at the top of that bluff at the viewpoint and looking down towards El Camino Real, could be quite different than what it's presented in the images of the designs as well. If you're on the what is the required sidewalk in front of that particular stretch of road, that looking up is going to be actually quite a shocking look. It's going to be quite a standing tall building. And so, I do definitely share the concerns of the community. Traveling along that particular corridor deserves every respect as far as traffic control and concern for speeds and pedestrians. As we, continue to develop along the area, it's not the only stretch that doesn't have all the improvements that are needed for that particular stretch. I felt like all the support for the findings to deny the concession were valid. There was certainly substantial documentation with that, and I respected that very much. I would certainly heed to those institutions that provide those documents, that they're very qualified to do so, and I would certainly utilize that as a assistance in guiding us forward with it. Because once it gets, further, it's certainly there's going to be more discussion around the road improvements. It'll be all rediscussed again. I did have some concerns about the fire protection plans. There were some issues around thinning of the brush. However, I think it was thoroughly reviewed, and it may not necessarily improve what exists there, but I don't think it's going to be a detriment necessarily to it. So I didn't find a significant fault with any particular aspect of it, but it certainly had some concerns that now that it's going to be a residential area, and that fire protection is so important, definitely for that. So I feel like I'm at a pretty good place with it all. I have reservations about approving a project of this particular size, being the largest structure in the area. At the same time, I think it's fulfilling all the guidelines that it's required to fulfill at this point. And so hopefully we'll be able to move forward in a positive place.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, I have a couple more questions for staff as part of our deliberation.
That's fine.
In the staff, so I'm going to refer to the staff report that was posted. Let's see, on page 33 of 51, there's a reference to the biological technical report. That paragraph, it references that four specials, in the middle of that paragraph, it starts the sentence, 4 special status plant species were observed within the project area during a rare plant surveys conducted in 2005 and 2011. That's almost 20 years ago, since 25, and then a good 14 years ago. Are those valid studies, in your opinion, or in someone's opinion at the city, that can be a document that can be referenced? I mean, don't you have to do a biological study sooner?
So the biological study that was provided by the applicant was dated October 2024.
Okay.
The study is referencing those dates as information that was provided in the past. So it's background information.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Just go to a couple of them. I guess it really isn't relevant, the prior submission, because that's not valid anymore. In the staff report, page 37 of 51 of the PDF, under the bullet, Grading and Landform Design, Chapter 3, this project features 23.5 feet of fill and 33.1 feet of cut. The project results in more than 8 feet of cut or fill. Requires a design review permit for the grading activity. So is that a discretionary approval of the Planning Commission to approve a design permit?
Yes.
So is that a waiver request that he's asked for?
Yes, that was part of the hillside impacts.
Hillside impact?
Correct.
Page 39 of 51, the circulation policy 3.3, create a safe and convenient circulation system for pedestrians. They reference, the staff references in the second column, an ADA accessible path. Where does the ADA obligation end for the applicant? Does it end when they hit Sage Canyon, or is there any federal obligations under the ADA extending beyond the project site?
We looked into this quite extensively. The building department, the building official, is the one who would enforce such requirements for accessibility. The information that was provided to us as staff analyzing this report is that the accessibility, it needs to be provided to the public right of way, and it doesn't explain any more than that. And so Sage Canyon Drive is a public road.
Okay, so it sounds like their obligation is to take it from their project to Sage Canyon and not beyond, under Section 3.3.
That's according to the building code.
Okay. There's a discussion on page 44 of 51 under the Resource Management Policy 10.3. On the staff side, contiguous natural habitat areas would be preserved with open space easements and managed into perpetuity with a land manager. So is that a deed restriction? Is that, I'm assuming that's the area that is the 100 feet from their project, or anything else? Well, I will ask you to explain how that works.
So the way that this is written here, it's alluding to agreements that would be done post discretionary approval, should the project get approved. And you're correct in that they would be documents that get signed by city and the applicant and then get recorded to the parcel.
Before construction? Before grading permits?
Not necessarily, it all depends on how we structure it, but essentially before building permit issuance. Agreements like that have different timing thresholds, and they're all a little unique.
Well, I guess my concern, without getting into the details of the biology report, is there's a gnatcatcher, there's coastal shrubs, there's coastal oaks or Nuttall's oaks, and there's some species that need to be addressed. So how do we, as a city, when an applicant comes in, if we don't agree to that up front, how do you handle that? I don't want them to start construction and then, oh, oops, we ran over the Del Mar aster.
So those are two different things. The agreement for open space easements, that's
Yes, sorry.
one item. The items that you're speaking about where you're saying, hey, I'm concerned about certain species being disturbed during construction. There's conditions of approval that have been recommended by the project biologists to require different processes such as site surveys before movement happens at the site, or rather disturbance of the site.
Well, some of the, if you bring up the site area, I think it was in the biology report, there was an aerial, and it showed where some of the species were identified. There was a gnatcatcher identified, there were certain flora and fauna that were identified in various coded symbols, colors. Oh, bingo. So how does the city manage, number one, it sounds like the easement is done, the open space easement is done sometime before C of O?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
If I may chime in here just to clarify a couple of items. Per the conditions of approval for this project, we're
Right.
requiring in this case that the open space easement be completed prior to building permit issuance.
Okay.
And then regarding some of the movement related to the Del Mar sand aster transplant,
Right.
that is requiring a plan to be completed and submitted prior to grading permit issuance. In addition to that, we are requiring prior to issuance of a grading permit that any habitat-based mitigation is also done at that time.
Now, is that reviewed under our local coastal plan by California Fish and Wildlife? Where do the other agencies come in during that process?
So in general, we have consulted already regarding this project with California Department of Fish and Wildlife, as well as the other wildlife agencies that are involved in this area.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened even before we got to this stage in the project. So the project materials that we have today are things that they've already seen. The only nuance with that, where we're continuing to work with them, is where it goes to the if you end up denying the concession, and we are requiring that public improvement plan, that's where we would continue to engage with them. But should there be any subsequent issues or concerns that they raise, we would ensure that we would implement any required measures that they recommend.
Thank you. And that brings up a very interesting point. If the city, if the applicant is successful in not moving the road in the future, and the city decides it wants to carry that burden, does the city have to do a full EIR on the road?
You are correct in that most likely we would need to do an EIR based off of the sensitive habitat that's here, as when the city does the project, we're not subject to the same CEQA exemptions, specifically the statutory exemption for providing 20% of affordable units
Right.
that the applicant has today.
Thank you. Almost done, Chris. I'm just going through. That's it. I mean, I could go technical, but I think I don't need to on some of the other things. So happy to continue conversation.
Okay.
Your turn.
All right, so I'll go. So first, I want to say that, and I appreciate everybody being here, and we will come to a decision tonight. You know, the applicants wants us to make a decision tonight, and we will. I'm confident we can reach a vote tonight. I do share some concerns. We're just going to touch on a couple different things that members of the public brought up just to address them, like I did with Jose's question. There was an individual who wanted a separate entrance for this project. I don't think that that's needed. I think that it might actually create additional traffic concerns and safety issues along El Camino Real once you put in two driveways that would be very close together. So I don't see really that as any kind of issue I have with the project. I also don't have any problem with the parking ratio. My general feeling on parking is that people who decide to rent in this project will know the number of parking spots that they have, and they also will share that information with their guests. So if it's a family with 3 cars, they might not choose to live here because they know that they wouldn't have enough parking spots that they could use. The question about the bus, I think I was thinking where the closest bus stop was, because this came up before on one of our other projects. I think it was the Greek Orthodox Church, and we were talking about the fact that like there's no bus stop really close to Miracosta College. And here, the nearest bus stop is 0.9 miles away, which brings me to, I'll get back to that, but I don't know that we can make any findings to deny the waivers. I don't feel completely confident that that we can make findings to deny the waivers. I do feel confident that we can deny the concession, and that's what I'm going to get to next. And the fact, some of the questions that were asked, in particular, the bus stop is 0.9 miles away, so typically buses would be used by people who either need to walk or bike to the bus and get on a bus to go someplace. So the fact that the nearest bus stop is 0.9 miles away, now you have people walking to the bus stop almost a mile, or riding a bike to a bus stop, when they don't have the ability to safely leave their community in order to get to that bus stop. In addition, the population that's going to be living there, as Susan mentioned, the older people and the families, we are talking about people that might have assisted use of a wheelchair or walker, and might be trying to go someplace. And we have families with kids with bikes, and we have this thing called the e-bike now, which has just put a whole new generation of bikers in motorized vehicles on our roads. Many of them would be biking to there's a private school nearby, but they'd also be biking to SDA and also to the middle school, because kids e-bike to middle schools. And that is part of the population that would be living in this community. And those 2 schools are close enough where parents would allow their kids to take their e-bike, regular bike, probably an e-bike, to ride their bikes to those schools. So I think that the number of trips, the bicycle and pedestrian trips that was mentioned, I feel like that's a low number. I think that there could be a lot more bikers, e-bikers making daily trips from this project than what's already been previously stated. The speeds on El Camino Real, the fact that it's part of the national highway system is very interesting. We've got the 5, we have El Camino Real, and then we have the 15. So if you look at that's concerning to start with. But the only other street I can really think of, Encinitas borders Carlsbad, but is La Costa Avenue. And that is the similar kind of street where it reaches the same speeds as El Camino Real. And I take La Costa a lot because I live on the north side of the city. And people drive 60 miles on La Costa, and it feels pretty safe. I mean, really. And some of the reasons it feels safe, too, even if I pass bikers or pedestrians, and people do run that far from El Camino Real to the ocean, and I see a lot of bikers, is because it does have a bike lane and it does have a complete sidewalk on one side. The project as it's designed now with the concession would not provide for that sidewalk on El Camino Real. So I think that based on what's been provided to us by staff and kind of talking about the safety concerns on El Camino Real in front of this project, I do think that we can support a safety finding to deny the concession. That's how I'm feeling right now.
I'm going to agree. I also want to thank staff. I think you guys went way out of your shoes to help us understand what we have here. Everybody is here tonight. Thank you very much. The community came back out again on this project to tell us your feelings. They're heartfelt and they're real. It's quite clear it comes down to one thing, and it is all about time and money and value. If they have to build the road, they will be subject to CEQA. They'll be subject to the Coastal Commission's comments. Time and time again, in the staff report, it said that the developer chose not to meet with them. Their way to avoid the obligations is to squish the project all the way back, which they have every right to do. They have every right to build it as tall as they can under the state laws. They have every right to go 100 feet back. They have every right to do whatever they want because we gave them that right when we made this site part of the housing element. Clear. However, we too have rights, and if you just stand on the road, it's not safe. We've documented that it's not safe, and it's practically not safe. From an evacuation standpoint, from a bicycle standpoint, it's just not safe. So clearly the trade-off here is if we approve and say no to the concession, and it goes down the path, and maybe it happens upstairs, and maybe it doesn't at City Council, they'll have to talk to Coastal Commission, and there'll be a lot of other obligations associated with that. And if they would have been able to do that at the very beginning, we wouldn't be here having this conversation. They probably wouldn't be asking for the concession because at $180,000, I still don't think it's material. So at the end of the day, that's the swag, that's the toggle in the deal. And I think that this is their way around Coastal. And again, I go back to my comment, it's a sleight of hand. It's disingenuous to the community. It is what it is. They have the right to do it. I disagree with it. I will support the project as designed, as submitted. However, I would deny the concession. That's what I have. Thanks again for everybody being here tonight.
Brett or Susan, any other comments you want to make?
I'm good with moving forward.
Okay. So we need to make, so if someone wants to take a stab at a motion, or I can do it, either way. I don't know if we know if we need to do it in two parts, or.
I will move that we approve with denying the concession and the conditions attached in the resolution.
I think we need to make a finding to deny the requested concession first. Would it be two motions, or is it in one motion? I'm just
Council,
looking to legal.
What do we do there?
Staff's conclusions.
I think we can do it if on page 50 of 51, the language there, I think might be sufficient. So, Susan, so are you making a motion to adopt the resolution approving the project, denying the concession, and conditioning the project to design and construct standard public improvements in El Camino Real based on the findings and conditions contained in the draft resolution of approval, which includes the language, let me finish real quick, that
Correct.
omitting the installation of the required vehicle lane, sidewalk, curb and gutter, and modifications to the existing bicycle lane would cause a significant adverse public health and safety impact that cannot be mitigated?
Correct. Per the finding of staff, I concur with that.
Okay. And would someone like to second that?
I'll second the motion.
All right. You call the vote? All right. That motion carries 4-0. And I think that The only other thing we have on the agenda now is adjournment. Did we finish everything else? Okay, so we will adjourn the meeting until,
Take on the floor.
what's that? Oh, I don't need to do that. I think I'm good. We'll adjourn the meeting to the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is February 5th of 2026. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
To provide suitable housing for workers